Time for
DodgerHeads.
high fly ball into right field. Dodgers have won it all in 2020. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 club. Strikes him out. There's a drive. Shohei Ohtani. Freeman hits the ball. She is gone. Birds of party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Bruce Kuntz. Back-to-back nights with a 9 a.m. shift in the middle of this. The winter meetings, Bruce, alive and well. Obviously, the Dodgers shocked the world today with Edwin Diaz. We're going to get into that, but nice to have a little bit of meat on the bone nowadays.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like the offseason anymore. We've spent the last couple of episodes on here with me telling you and everybody to be patient and to not expect everything to happen fast. And these last 2 days, it's happened fast. I'm glad that the winter meetings are going on. And normally I've felt like the winter meetings have lost their luster a little bit, where things don't happen crazily like this. But this has been a real quick start.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the breaking news this morning that Edwin Diaz is going to be a Dodger. I have not gotten a chance to discuss this with Bruce. We've also heard some more news and notes kind of trickle out over the day. So, of course, we are going to talk Edwin Diaz here in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Tanner Scott. What does the Diaz move mean for him? There's a lot of positivity around him this offseason. Are you buying it? We've got a new outfielder in the mix as far as guys that the Dodgers have been linked to. Andrew Friedman spoke about Kiké Hernández. There's some Freddie Freeman, is he hurt kind of stuff I want to get to. So lots to talk about here on a Tuesday. As always, shout out to everyone joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. We appreciate all of you, those listening after the fact via podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google, Dodgerheads podcast. Thank you as well. Let's dive into it. And let's start with Edwin Diaz, Bruce. Fabian Ardaya speaking today on Sportsnet LA said, based on what we heard, this came together really quickly. Even some Dodgers people were surprised it came together the way that it did. I'll ask you this question, and I asked it to Matt and Anthony this morning as well. Were you more surprised that Edwin Diaz was a Dodger or that he only got a 3-year contract?
I was more surprised by the money. I think the money was much lower than I thought it was going to be. And the last time that I was on with you a week ago, we spent the whole time talking about how Edwin Diaz would be perfect, but it seemed like he was trending towards a contract that was as big, if not bigger, than the last one he got from the Mets, which was like in the ballpark of 5 years, $100 million. I wasn't really comfortable with that. And really all I talked about is I would love Edwin Diaz, but not for that money. And the Dodgers got him and not for that money. So my first reaction was, I can't believe that he only got $69 million and 3 years. And I can't believe that it's the Dodgers who managed to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of deferred money as well, like $4 or $5 million each year is deferred, which lowers the AAV $1.5 million. It is the highest AAV that a reliever has ever received, surpassing, wait for it, Edwin Diaz's last contract with the Mets a couple of years ago. And we're going to get into why he is worth that amount of money, or if he's worth that amount of money, maybe I should say. But it is worth pointing out, Bruce, that this is an accumulation of news stories. And what I mean by that is we talked, again, this morning a little bit, and Anthony said something that the more I hear, the more I actually think I disagree with Anthony, in that Anthony is like, you know what, I actually am starting to believe that this was the plan all along, that you don't sort of stumble into an Edwin Diaz, that if you want this guy, you go after him. All the reporting we've heard today, though, Bruce, and especially that quote from Fabian Ardaya saying even some Dodgers people were surprised. This felt like, again, I don't want to say the Dodgers were just like acting impulsively, that they were, making decisions that they shouldn't have been making. But it does feel like maybe this deal came together just in the last 3 or 4 days.
No, I agree with you. I think that there were other options that went off the board pretty fast into the offseason, and to hear that they were working hard on trying to get shorter term contracts with some of the other guys that have already signed elsewhere, that makes me think that the Dodgers might have been evaluating it the same way that we were as the Dodger community, of looking at it and saying, Devin Williams is gone. Ryan Helsley is gone. Now all of a sudden you've got the very best option in Edwin Diaz that is the best pitcher, but there were strings to potentially make you think that he wasn't the greatest option in free agency. And then there was a huge drop off until the next tier, depending on how you feel about Robert Suarez. And I think it's totally believable. And with the reporting, it seems like it's trending to me, just guessing, that the Dodgers had a little evaluation period where they said, okay, we've got two ways we can go, kind of trust the guys that we have and sign with these lower tier relievers, or just go all eggs in the basket of Edwin Diaz because we struck out on the other good options. And this seemed to come together quickly that way.
Yeah, Fabian Ardaya, in the piece that just published a little while ago, said that the Dodgers aggressively sought deals with Iglesias and Helsley before they signed. They went to 3 years in their final offer to Devin Williams, but missed out there. And they were becoming more and more willing to discuss a slightly longer-term deal with Robert Suarez's agent prior to this deal getting agreed to. When I see the numbers that Devin Williams got, that Helsley got, that Iglesias got, and some of the speculation about what Suarez is going to get, Bruce, I'm stunned at how good of a value Edwin Diaz feels like compared to those. Now, we have to include the 2nd and 5th draft picks, as well as the $1 million they lose out of international agency when we talk about value. And yet the idea that Iglesias got as much as he did on a 1-year deal, not a 3-year deal, the idea that when we talk about Edwin Diaz versus Devin Williams, and we're only talking about, especially with the deferred money, something like $14-ish million over 3 years as the actual difference in value between those two contracts, or excuse me, it would be higher than that. And probably like $15 million in difference. To me, like this fell into a range where all of a sudden this is a value. This isn't an overpay. This isn't an overreaction. This is like a Freddie Freeman type situation where the guy we wanted came to a price that we almost couldn't ignore.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the value for Edwin Diaz at this price tag, if you take out the draft pick part of it, where the Dodgers lose their 2nd rounder, their 5th rounder, and $1 million in the international bonus pool, those things sting. But it's not the first time the Dodgers are willing to give those away. They'll find a way to replenish the farm system. They always do. And when you have a guy who is consensus top 3 reliever in baseball, there's an argument that he's the very best come across your table to potentially be signed. I think looking at this contract in the dollar figure and then looking at the Devin Williams deal, it's a completely separate reaction of when Williams got that 3 years for the Mets and the amount of money he got. My first reaction was I was surprised he got that much. It seemed like a lot of money, and I wasn't surprised the Dodgers didn't go there. But then for Diaz, when I saw these figures today, I can't believe that he didn't get a 4th year, at least wherever he was going to go. I didn't think that there was any way he'd sign a 3-year deal. So I think it's great value for the Dodgers. Absolutely.
When you look at this, a lot of the concern is going to be paying a reliever. It's going to be paying a reliever who's already over 30. I believe he'll turn 32 in March of this upcoming year. I thought there was a great back and forth between Kirsten Watson and Andrew Friedman today in a Sportsnet LA interview. And he was asked about it. He said, we have less heavy lifting to do, but also a great opportunity with a really special group of players to look to be aggressive, to add. That feels like the summary of what happened here. He continued. She said, there are reports of a 3-year deal with Edwin Diaz. He wasn't allowed to comment on it because nothing's official. And his response was, I read that, which I thought was just a great response by Andrew Friedman. And then he said, looking back to last year, lost my place. He said, looking back to last year, obviously our bullpen performed well below our expectations. That in a lot of ways was surprising to us. Continued. That being said, we felt like a lot of those guys are poised to really bounce back and be big parts of what we do in 2026. And we feel like the bullpen will be a strength. To the extent that we're able to add a really big arm into that mix, then obviously we would only feel better about it. What do you make of Friedman's comments about this alleged move that he wasn't allowed to comment on?
Yeah, I think that it circles back to the same kind of thoughts we've been having even before the Diaz signing of the Dodgers have a very clear path forward to making the bullpen a strength compared to the weakness that it was last year, and going and grabbing the best reliever on the market easily. It definitely helps that track. I think that, like we talked about with the value, when you sign Edwin Diaz, I feel a lot more comfortable giving a big reliever contract to a guy like Diaz than, pretty much anybody else, because it's against the Dodger usual tendency. They got burned with it last year with Tanner Scott. That deal doesn't look great right now. Still 3 years to go, so he could absolutely bounce back. But handing out big contracts like this, the huge AAV to a reliever, doesn't follow the Dodger usual style. But I'd way rather hand out a contract like this to Edwin Diaz, who feels way more safe than Devin Williams did. And just looking at the 3-year term, I feel a lot more confidence that this deal looks like it's going to be good for all 3 years than Devin Williams. It's a 3-year deal that you don't even know for sure what you're going to get this year, because for the Mets, if they get the Devin Williams that pitched for the Yankees this season, then that contract doesn't look very good. That contract is assuming he's going to bounce back, versus Diaz. He just has to go out and continue to pitch the way that he has for many, many years now, and it looks great.
Yeah. I want to talk about what you think about Diaz, and I'll share the stat that is my favorite, and I posted this on social media, but I think this puts into perspective why I'm comfortable paying Edwin Diaz the amount of money they paid him, even after the Tanner Scott debacle, even after like this whole don't pay relievers, it never works out thing. Here's why I think Diaz, I'm not saying he's a full-on like exception to that rule, but if there is an exception to the rule, he's as close to it as possible. And here's what I mean. The consistency from Edwin Diaz compared to his peers is astonishing. He has thrown 9 seasons he has pitched 9 seasons in Major League Baseball between Seattle and the Mets. In 9 seasons, he has never been below the 95th percentile in whiff rate. He has never been below the 93rd percentile in strikeout rate. He has one time in 9 years been below the 94th percentile in expected ERA. Like 9 for 9 in those first two categories, 8 for 9 in the third. To put this in perspective, Tanner Scott, who they signed a year ago, and when we have this conversation, we kind of need to wash 2025 from our brains, because when they signed him after 2024, he was one of the best relief pitchers in Major League Baseball. He was coming off an absolutely dominant stretch for a couple of seasons. If you look at those same metrics, okay, how many seasons in the 6 prior to signing did Tanner Scott have a whiff rate above 95%? Again, Diaz 9 for 9, Tanner Scott 4 for 6. How many times had Tanner Scott been above a 93rd percentile strikeout rate? Edwin Diaz 9 for 9, Tanner Scott 2 for 6. How many times did he have an expected ERA above the 94th percentile? Edwin Diaz 8 for 9, Tanner Scott 1 for 6. Most relievers do not go 9 for 9 in any categories. It's like 1 year good, 2 years bad, 4 years good, something like that. To me, Bruce, when I look at this, and I use these strikeout rate, whiff rate, expected ERA, because those are what we call sticky stats. Those are stats that have great power to predict moving forward. To me, this right here is not meant to be a diss on Tanner Scott. It's why I think Edwin Diaz is just different from the guys that he gets compared to.
He's such an outlier, and I think that's the thing that stands out about him. It's 2 really great pitches. The fastball's up in triple digits. You can pretty much trust that. His 99th percentile extension to go with that fastball velocity is really repeatable. He's built like an outlier, like I'm saying, like nobody else gets down the mound like he does as a reliever. The slider is fantastic and has always been fantastic. And you pull up his Savant page and you see 99s all over the place. And that's something that you can trust a little bit more, because it's not like that. There's no mystery as to why Edwin Diaz has been as good as he is. So you can immediately detect and deliver exactly why he's as great as he is. And that means that you can trust a little bit more. A lot of relievers, the reason that it's so all over the place is there'll be like one thing that really stands out, one standout trait, and then another thing that is kind of being hidden by that one standout trait, and then it can fluctuate year over year. But like you've already hit the nail on the head, Edwin Diaz is remarkably consistent. His one like fluctuated sort of down year was in 2024 when he still had I think a sub 3. So it was like I don't think anybody in New York with the Mets ever once doubted that he was still that guy. And then he got right back to being a top 3 reliever in baseball this year. So like you already said, if there's anybody that you could trust handing a contract like this to, and this is where you have to separate. Do you want to make the debate about not paying relievers because you're afraid that it's not going to work out? Or do you want to make the debate about not paying relievers because you don't think relievers impact the game enough to earn that kind of money? Those are 2 separate conversations. And Diaz does not apply to the one where you're not sure what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think that's a great point by you, separating those 2. Because most people, I think, say don't pay relievers simply because you have no idea what next year is going to give you. Some of the worst relief pitchers become the best relief pitchers. Some of the best relief pitchers start to look very average, like Tanner Scott. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And you put it way more eloquently in less words than I did, which is Edwin Diaz does not fall into that category because he has simply been excellent every single season. Now you could go back a year and say, oh my, a couple years with 3.5 ERAs. First of all, let's pause and say if your worst season is a 3.5 ERA, that's pretty freaking good to begin with. And secondly, again, and you can disagree. I know there's people that hate the analytics stuff. Like I look at the stuff that is more sticky year to year. And ERA is just not one of those things because ERA, again, a guy gives up a 3-run home run. Like all of a sudden, if you're only pitching 56 innings, that's going to do a massive thing to your ERA where it's one pitch that impacts everything. I'd much rather look at whiff rate, strikeout rate, expected stuff that take into account a larger number of factors that you can control.
And I also think that a big point to be made here when we're talking about the lack of risk that it feels like this deal has is where the 3 years comes in, because I feel like that 9 for 9, all those categories that haven't really changed for him over the last 9 years, you can have a lot of trust that those are going to continue for the next 3 years. It was when we extended it out to 5 that I wasn't sure, because he's entering his age 32 season. He's got all the traits. It's not like he's going to get any shorter or stop getting down the mound like he does. So those things are going to continue. And as long as the velocity and the ability to spin the slider stay where they're at, then I have a ton of faith that he's still going to be this guy for 3 years. When you talked about a 5-year deal and talking about like when he's 35, then I was not totally sure about what if the strike throwing goes completely downhill, something like that. But for 3 years, for a contract for a reliever, this is as low risk as you can get, because you're talking about the best guy that you could have given the deal to. And like we're getting into all these reasons why you can trust that for the next 3 years, you can trust that he's this guy right now. And there's no reason to think that it's going to start to tail off in that such short term.
Yeah. And the projections were adding a 4th year and $15 million to what the Dodgers ultimately paid. And if you imagine the Dodgers basically just getting out of that year, it's a full year and it's $15 million. That is the least likely of the 4 years to be successful. And so that's why, even if it's the highest AAV ever, you're not really worried about the first 70 million that you paid to Edwin Diaz. It was the last 15 or 30 that were going to be the terrifying part, where the risk doesn't just outweigh the reward. It's like not even close. There's likely no benefit that Edwin Diaz is providing in years 4 or 5, but he's still getting paid at the top of the market. The Dodgers just being able to condense and say, we want to pay guys for years that they're likely going to be either elite to very good. With a guy like Diaz, I think that is the key. If we could dig into him a little bit too, I want to point this out, because some of these guys, you look at fastball velocity, and as soon as it starts to go down, everything falls apart. With Diaz, the fastball velocity has started declining a little bit. But what's key for people, I think, to understand, Bruce, is how devastating his slider is. Like his best pitch is not a 110 mile an hour fastball that's going to fall off the earth in the next 3 years. Obviously, if that becomes a 94 mile an hour fastball, we've got problems. But it does make me feel better when you're signing up for a guy that his best pitch is actually not the one that is most dependent on velocity.
Yeah, he throws the slider dang near half the time. And you're 100% right that his fastball is a triple-digit fastball with 99 mile an hour or 99 percentile extension, and it's his secondary pitch. That when you put those things together, it shouldn't be his secondary pitch. He throws it as a supplement to get guys off the slider, and his slider is the out pitch that he's going to throw half the time, and it's the pitch that he really wants to go to, and the fastball is to just make sure they don't sit on the slider. So the slider is fantastic. He only needs those 2 pitches, and they're both great. So yeah, like you said, it's a profile that I have a ton of trust in, and both those pitches are absolutely filthy.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. I just got sent, Ken Rosenthal and Katie Wu just wrote an article for The Athletic, basically saying, why wouldn't the Dodgers go all the way in? And I'll just read this part to you, Bruce, and we can react in real time. It says, why not just keep going? To sign Diaz, the Dodgers were willing to sacrifice 2 picks, their 2nd and 5th highest in 2026, plus $1 million in international bonus pool space. Signing Kyle Tucker would now cost them their 3rd and 6th picks, a seemingly minor impediment. The bigger issue with the Dodgers and Tucker pursuit would be getting him at their price. They are unlikely to offer a 6 or 7 year deal, according to a person briefed on the team's plans. The club, however, would entertain a shorter 3 to 4 year deal with a higher AAV, similar to what Alex Bregman landed last year when he signed a 3-year, $120 million contract. Bregman declined a 6-year, $170 million deal on and on it goes. It's interesting. It's interesting. And this is Ken Rosenthal and Katie Wu, who's new to the Dodgers beat on The Athletic. They go on to say Tarik Skubal is probably less likely considering what the Tigers would want, and they don't particularly need him, et cetera, et cetera. The premise of this was they said they weren't going to spend at the top of the market, and then they spent at the top of the market. Is there another move coming is the question. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, so I was just going to bring this point up about the Diaz contract of the Dodgers always try to do the lower years, higher AAV thing, and normally nobody bites, but it seems like Diaz did. So I fully expect that they're going to continue to go at Kyle Tucker with that approach. We've seen them do it with Bryce Harper. We've seen them do it with a ton of free agents before. The Dodgers never want to go to the 10-year range, but they'll always be willing to pay more to secure the prime years. And yeah, I would be obviously all over that. Annual average doesn't matter as much to me when you're talking about these superstar players, because like usually with the way these contracts are structured, let's say Kyle Tucker gets a 10-year, $400 million deal. $40 million per year for the next couple of years that you're mainly signing him for is a bargain. Any team would be more than willing to pay that. So all the Dodgers are doing is taking all that money at the end that nobody would want to pay, and especially not the Dodgers, and just shifting some of it to the beginning to secure that player. It makes sense, right? And I think that if Kyle Tucker was even a little receptive to that, then I would hope the Dodgers would go all the way in, because we've talked about how there are other options on the trade market or on the free agent market for the outfield. None of them look great, but giving Kyle Tucker, you don't have to stop at $40 million a year. Alex Bregman got that. Kyle Tucker would need more. Go ahead and give him 50, 55, hell, 60. Just throw however much he needs on a per year basis for the next 3 or 4 and see what could get him to bite.
Yeah. The point that's being made in the midst of all this too is how quickly some of these things can happen. Because I genuinely believe that, yes, the Dodgers pivoted to Edwin Diaz, but I think Edwin Diaz pivoted to the Dodgers also. The reports are that the Mets were basically offering him the same thing. They offered 3 years, $66 million. They said they were willing to go higher. Essentially, he chose the Dodgers over the Mets, which makes sense for 100 different reasons. But I actually, and I think I said this on one of our shows over the last few days, is like, at some point, if Edwin Diaz doesn't have the 5-year, $100 million offer that he wants, and these relievers are flying off the market, then he might come back down to something. I know everybody's speculating Kyle Tucker, 10 years, $400 million, $500 million, whatever the number is. Like, I think there's a world where at some point Kyle Tucker is going to come back down to earth, because there just haven't been that many teams connected to him. I think it's the Blue Jays. There was one other team. The Orioles, I believe, are like the only two officially like he visited or he talked to them kind of reports that I've heard. And so I do think there's a world where the offers he's getting are like 7 years for $280 million. And then the Dodgers come in and said, what if we give you 200 for 4, maybe with an opt-out, halfway through or something like that, where all of a sudden that deal becomes a little bit more palatable to him. To me, that's the scenario where Kyle Tucker becomes a Dodger.
Yeah, it would take some kind of market collapse or a lack of development. I don't think that Kyle Tucker is going to go and just choose the Dodger version of the offer if the Yankees give him that 350 plus. It would take that not happening, but I don't think that's an impossibility at all. Because like you're saying, when we think about there's always that one top of the market hitter free agent that everybody wants. And it feels like the market is not all the way developing on Tucker. Just the speculation and the talk that's going around. It seems like a lot of teams are pretty wary of giving him the money that it seems like he wants and seems like he deserves as the top of the market hitter for this year. There isn't a huge chomping at the bit feel from around baseball. I think he's still going to wind up getting offers in the at least $300 million. I think he'll get the 8 to 10 year deal. And I think that the ultimate thing would be whether he thinks he could get $400 million if he takes a deal with the Dodgers and opts out after 2 years. So I still think this is like a very unlikely thing that he winds up a Dodger, because we always talk about this and the Dodgers always make these offers. And usually I think the agents and the players like to use the Dodger offer as a chip to get other teams to up the offers, because everybody always wants security and that long-term deal. But until he signs somewhere else, I'm going to be interested, and I'm going to be hoping that they find a way to make it work.
And it's interesting, and not to nitpick, when you say the Kyle Tucker market would have to collapse, it's the assumed Kyle Tucker market would have to collapse.
Yeah.
We have no idea what the actual Kyle Tucker market is, right? This isn't a scenario where we have numbers like, hey, there's a $400 million offer on the table for Juan Soto or whatever. Like, we have the projections, but there's a real chance that some of these teams don't love Kyle Tucker as much as the numbers would assume teams love Kyle Tucker. Maybe it's the off the field stuff, the personality stuff. Maybe it's just the good, like great, but not elite at any one thing. Whatever it is, there's an assumed market. And if that collapses, then we could see these guys coming running back. And again, we're talking about Edwin Diaz. This literally just happened to the Dodgers today. And that's why I think it's fair to kind of like have real conversations about things that may have seemed totally unrealistic a couple days ago.
Yeah, it could be that it collapses or that it just literally does not develop from the beginning. Yeah. And I think that's, like you said, it's what we just saw with Edwin Diaz. He went to the market thinking that he was going to have teams going all over him to try and offer 4-year deals, and that just didn't happen. So he turned and said, what's the one team I'd like to play for right now? And he went to the Dodgers, and they said, well, glad they give you the short-term high annual average deal. And it worked out real fast. It's basically, that's how it sounds like it went down just within a couple of days. So who knows? Maybe the same thing could happen with Tucker if the Yankees and the Phillies and the Blue Jays and these teams that we've like you said, the speculation says these are the teams that make sense, but there hasn't been a ton of confirmation that there's teams going hard in after him. And if that just doesn't happen, then the Dodgers have themselves in the position of they're not the Pirates offering a short-term high annual average. It's not a money thing. It's a matter of if you're going to wait a couple years to reset your market and make some serious bank on a short-term basis before you try and get that long-term deal in a couple of years, there's no team that any player would rather do that with than with the Dodgers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm keeping my eye over here because I have Twitter up, and it seems like there is a lot of smoke building, not connected to the Dodgers. I'll just warn everybody. But Brandon Lau is a name that is being discussed in trades. Ketel Marte's market is heating up, according to some sources. And so we'll see. The winter meetings, man. Crazy stuff happens. So we'll see how this ultimately ends up playing out. So let's get to some super chats. Laura says, what a phenomenal time to be a Dodger fan. I wonder if we truly appreciate this era of success. Today was jaw-dropping. I try my hardest, Laura. And if you watch this show, you know it. I try my hardest to appreciate this. And I constantly remind people what the first 16, 17, 18 years of my life were like when this team never won the division, when this team never won a playoff game, then never won a playoff series, and all of that. It was a big deal when the Dodgers would sign like a mid-level free agent, it felt like. And I'll just tease something. We've got a top 25 players of the first 25 years of this century list that we're going to be writing about on the website over the number of weeks, that we're going to be talking about on a recorded show that's going to drop on Saturday starting in a couple of weeks. And I'll just say there's some names on there that are going to be higher on my list, I think, simply because they were name brand players who came to the Dodgers in an era where name brand players simply didn't come to the Dodgers, or they offered something where they don't compare. They'd be like the 6th or 7th best guy on this roster, but on those rosters, they felt more important. And so I try my hardest to appreciate these days, Bruce, because I don't want to be numb to the fact that the best closer in baseball, the best relief pitcher on the market, just chose the Dodgers today. Yeah,
it's an Edwin Diaz signing for almost every other team in baseball would be the decade-defining signing of this is such a huge impact add. And for the Dodgers, it's like number 10 in the last few years in terms of immediate impact and the shock that you feel when you see that notification. I'm glad that Laura brings this up. I'm glad that you talk about it too. Like, it's something that every Dodger fan everywhere should be reminding themselves and each other all the time to really bask in the feeling of this, because it's not going to last forever. That's not how sports work. And there will be a day, hopefully multiple decades down the road, where you can look back and reminisce on this time and remember how great it was. So appreciating that in the moment, knowing that this is as good a time really as there has been in recent modern baseball history. There hasn't been any team that in an individual moment is better to be rooting for than the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy stuff. And as we always say, enjoy the ride, everybody, because none of this is guaranteed, although it does seem like it might be guaranteed with this front office and this farm system. Brad says, hey, Mets, Michael Conforto is still available. There you go. Michael Conforto, he gets a major league deal, right?
Questionable. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he was pretty bad last year. I
I mean, he
wouldn't.
was really bad. I just assume there's a team out there that would take their chances.
It's not like it would shock me, but I'm kind of in the camp of big league or minor league deal with big league camp invite and then play for a spot on the roster.
That would be wild to sign a $17 million deal 1 year and then minor league deal the next. Woof. I mean, he was bad. He was bad. David just says, let's get Tarik Skubal and call it a day. It's what's hard about the Skubal thing. It's all in my mentions. I'm sure it's in yours as well, Bruce. We just haven't had like a fully credible source say it yet. It's like all these random Twitter accounts. And I know there's the one guy from KTLA who I hadn't heard of until yesterday. No offense to him. I don't live in LA, but like, I'm like, he's the guy reporting that like the deal is done. It's in place. They're just waiting on approval, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just haven't seen anything credible report this. Katie Wu and Ken Rosenthal basically saying it's unlikely for what it's worth. That was in the piece that just came out today, partly because the Dodgers don't really need starting pitching, partly because of just how much it would cost. But do you think there's any chance that there's any smoke on this Skubal thing?
To me, I approach it from a common sense point of view of first, I just don't see him getting traded no matter how many people have said like they're thinking about it. It just seems like it is impossible because of how much they would be shooting themselves in the foot when the Tigers have finally gotten back to being contenders. And even if they do, which would already be surprising, as I'm saying, if they did trade him, that price would be so insane that it's just not the Dodger MO to pay that right now. I think there would be some other team that would be willing to give a little bit more. And the Dodgers would be the kind of team with this specific scenario where obviously if it was opportunistic, they would love to go to the table, but they're not going to get into a bidding war for Tarik Skubal when they already have one of the best rotations ever assembled. And that's not to say that not to discredit him or how impactful he would be as an ad, but the Dodgers don't have a reason to go and completely annihilate all their young talent to go get him when he's going to be on the market next year. And if they really wanted to sign him, which again, they wouldn't trade for him if they weren't thinking that they were going to try and sign him long-term. And if they're thinking that they could try and sign him long-term, then just wait a year and not blow up all your young talent. So I just don't think from a logical point of view that it lines up very well.
Yeah. And I mean, this may seem insignificant. You can correct me if you disagree, but like, I think the deal to go after a guy like Diaz, to give up your 2nd and 5th round picks, $1 million in international bonus pool money, like, I feel like that's part of a broader strategy. And so, yes, they are going to go all in and they're going to push to try and win this window when Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and these guys are here, right? But it feels like they've always kind of had one foot in and 1 foot out when it came to their farm system. And so the idea of completely depleting a farm system to go get Skubal on the same day that you give up 2 top 5 round draft picks and $1 million in international free agency money. Again, I'm not saying one of those things make the other impossible. It just feels like it would be very inconsistent with how the Dodgers have handled things historically. They kind of pick one or the other. Like, either we're going to hang on to our draft picks and pool money because we're going to ship out guys, or we're going to ship out the draft picks and hang on to our guys.
I think that the Dodgers, it's something to be thankful for. And I remember we talked about this a lot right after the trade deadline when the Dodgers didn't do as much as everybody wanted. But it's a matter of reminding yourself the Dodgers operate, I wouldn't say it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think it's like a 70%, 75% maybe on the immediate right now, all in like every other team would be. And then a 25% on saying, let's make sure that we can also be all in the next 10 years too, and not just right now. And it works. The Dodgers didn't go all in at this trade deadline, and they still won another World Series. And I think that that's where baseball is such a sport. You can get philosophical with this talk here of baseball is such a sport that it doesn't matter what you do. There's no way to guarantee that you're winning a World Series. There's no way to get north of 50% odds. That's just not how the sport works. So the best way to win consistently is to have a really, really good roster instead of the best it could possibly be. A really, really good roster year over year over year and wait for the odds to play out in your way. And that's what the Dodgers have done for the last 10 years. That's why they've won the division so many times in a row. And it took a little bit for those odds to finally swing their way, but now they've won 3 World Series in the last 6.
Yeah, I'm with you. We'll see. I mean, again, the Dodgers have been aggressive. And I think this is what I would say. nothing is off the table with this team. Like when I see
Yeah.
people have these grand pronouncements of like, hey, I think it's going to be a quiet offseason. I don't think the Dodgers would ever do this. It's like they've done everything. They've gone and traded tons of prospects for guys if they thought they were worth it. They've gone to $700 million with Ohtani, right? Like everything is on the table with this organization. Nothing should be counted out.
It's purely a talk, not that they would balk at the idea of trading for Tarik Skubal and say, no way, that price would be way too high. It's a matter of they'd wait for it to be opportunistically correct. They'd wait for the price to be the right price where whatever they deem internally as the price that makes sense in terms of shifting the priority to now without completely sacrificing the later. They have these computer calculations and they have the smart people in the room that know exactly how to balance those two things. And that's where trading for Tarik Skubal, to me, from an outside perspective, doesn't feel like that it would fit the Dodger equation of those things. But if the price were to be lower than we thought it would be, if the Tigers all of a sudden decide they have to get rid of him now because they don't want to trade him at the trade deadline and they don't want to let him leave for nothing, if things shift from the way that they're currently perceived from the outside right now, and the Dodgers see a chance to swoop in, then they'll be absolutely all over that. So it's not a matter of not being aggressive. It's just that it has to fit their terms. They're not going to fit another team's terms with something like this.
Absolutely. Don't care says bullpen fixed. Who fixes the outfield now? 3-peat exclamation point. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So stay tuned. Jedi Engineer, what about Miami and Stowers? I always forget how to pronounce this. It's Stowers here.
I think it's Stowers, Kyle Stowers, but I'm not
Stowers.
100% sure either.
Stowers trade. He wants to stay in Miami by all reports. They have not offered him a contract extension is all of the reporting. It doesn't seem like he's a guy they would want to trade. It seems like they're going to train one or two young pitchers, but that's about it. So look, he would make a ton of sense. I just can't imagine Miami is interested in moving him. And keep in mind, I mean, of course you'd have to send some of these guys out, but on the outfield side, I think ideally for the Dodgers, they would find someone who could be a solution to them for the next 2 or 3 years while they let their young guys develop, Pages, as well as the 4 guys at the top of the farm system, and then see what happens. Not to say they would be uninterested in like a potential stud like Stowers, but I just think that the ideal would be somebody who's got 2 to 3 years of team control.
For Stowers, we're talking about 5 seasons of team control. I don't think there's any way Miami would move him. And if they were to suddenly decide, then that's where like the price would be insane, where it would be more than the player Kyle Stowers is. And he's a great player, but that's not a trade that ever really happens or that the Dodgers would be the first team trying to do.
Yeah. Real quick to wrap up the Edwin Diaz conversation, I wanted to ask you, what does this mean for Tanner Scott? I mean, the easy answer is right that Edwin Diaz is clearly the 9th inning guy and Tanner Scott is not, although that is not new. But do you view them going out and signing Edwin Diaz as like a repudiation of Tanner Scott, what the Dodgers believe about him moving forward, or simply strength upon strength? Like, are they deeming the Tanner Scott deal a total failure and that is why we're going to get Edwin Diaz? Or like, is it possible they believe in Tanner Scott and also were like, screw it, let's get Edwin Diaz too?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good question, but I don't think it has anything to do with Tanner Scott. I think like a player like Edwin Diaz, if the Dodgers see a chance to go get a player like Edwin Diaz, then they just go do it, regardless of who they have, how confident they are in the guys they have. I think that you can certainly say that there's no way that the Dodgers can go into next year logically and be fully sure that Tanner Scott's going to be the guy they thought they were signing, because that doesn't make sense. Nobody is. But they can still have a level of confidence that he's going to return to the guy that they thought. It's just not 100% confidence. And even if they did have that 100% confidence, the Dodgers would still be a much better team with Tanner Scott in the 8th inning and Edwin Diaz in the 9th. So I don't think that this signing means anything about how they view him. And I think that it's just hoping that if he does return to form like they're hoping that he does, then now all of a sudden, instead of it being that him as the 9th inning guy would be a really good bullpen, now you're talking about if Scott returns to form, it could be like far and away the best bullpen in baseball the year after it was such a problem.
Yeah, there's a world where the Dodgers look at these two guys in the postseason and they're like, all right, our last 9 outs are covered between Diaz and Scott. We've just got to figure out how to get to the 18 before it, right? I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibilities.
And thank goodness for that after this year where the Dodgers were running out their starters for complete games in the big 2025. That's not something that you should be having to do. And that's why signing Edwin Diaz, and if Scott returns to form, if Blake Trinan looks anything like himself, there's so many guys that you could flip the clock right back to where the Dodgers in 2024, they won the World Series relying on their bullpen. This year it was fully on the starters. Now you could find the happy medium where you don't have to ask Yoshinobu Yamamoto to do everything that he did, and you still could win the World Series again.
Yeah, they're going to flip 6 coins, and they only need 2 or 3 of them to land on heads for this thing to be headed in the right direction. Along the lines of Scott, real quick, the reason I ask this is because I have been noticing, I'm not going to say impressed by, surprised by any of that. I have noticed the positivity out of both Andrew Friedman and Dave Roberts this week when they speak specifically about Tanner Scott. And it is very easy to say, well, yeah, of course they're going to say positive things. They want to speak this into existence, etc. But you tell me, Bruce, like, does this sound like sort of nonsense BS smoke about a guy that might actually still stink? Or do you buy this? There's 3 quotes I want to read you. The first is with Dave Roberts. What gives you confidence Tanner Scott will bounce back? Quote, I just think there were some things he kept under wraps about his body. I think the transition to LA and anything that could go wrong went wrong. I just feel he works his tail off. He's too talented. His track record was nothing like last year. So I just think it was an outlier of a season. He was followed up. Did the forearm injury linger after he returned? Quote, there was some stuff that honestly he never felt right all year. There were some moments that he looked right, felt okay, but he just never felt comfortable. He's never going to use that as an excuse. To have a regular offseason to prepare for 26, he's going to be on a mission next year. Andrew Friedman was then interviewed by Kirsten Watson, and this is what Friedman said, quote, he's hungry to get back out there and be a big part of what we do in 2026, and I would definitely bet on him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe it. I think that it's genuine that they have a lot of faith in his bounce back and that they're not just throwing smoke out. And part of a big reason for that for me is looking at the way that they managed him last year. Even as things were so bad so often, they continued to go to him as the closer and they continued to show faith. And to me, looking back at it in hindsight, that tells me that they had reasons to think that it made sense that he was struggling the way that he was. And so they were continuing to work on those things and hope that we're hoping that it would get better. I think it would have been handled differently if there weren't these things that they're suggesting behind the scenes, like working through body stuff and different things going on with him. If none of that stuff existed and he was just bad with no real reason for it, I think they would have replaced him in the closer spot a lot earlier last year. And then there's also just the logical side. If we're talking about how relievers fluctuate, that's just part of it. And this guy was one of the best relievers in the sport when the Dodgers signed him. So just logically, there's a very good reason to think that this year is not the guy that he's just is permanently now. He's still got really good stuff, and that still showed at times this year, just not consistently. So if he just dials that consistency back in, then he'll be right back to the guy they hoped they were getting.
Yeah, and I see Matty Man in the chat saying, obviously they have concerns, and I should rephrase it. I think anybody that saw the actual results that were put on has concerns. A better way for me to have phrased this would be, do they have real reason to believe that last year was an anomaly? I think that's the question. You have to have concerns. The guy had a 4.8 ERA last year, right? The question is not, are they worried about that? Did they think that was bad? Of course they did. The question is, do they have reason to believe that things are going to be different? What we're being told is, hey, he might have been way more hurt than we let on. He might have been trying to play through something. He might have been battling something. It was the first year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the part that we have to ask ourselves, do we buy that or not buy that? And of course, we're going to find out when the season begins. But I think if Tanner Scott, I'll put it this way, as a fan, watching what I did with Tanner Scott, how bad and unproductive he was last season, best case scenario for me for the offseason is to find out that he was more hurt than we were told, right? Like, that's the best case scenario, because it's like, thank goodness there is something with explanatory power for what we saw. Why was he so much worse in 25 than he was in 24 versus he's just cooked, right? Because that's worst case scenario. The Dodgers, whether they believe it or not, are at least offering us an alternative explanation to he's cooked. And if we believe in reliever volatility getting worse, maybe we can believe a little bit in it getting better too.
You want a tangible thing that you can blame for the struggles that can be fixed. And that's what it sounds like the way the Dodgers are talking about him now, is they think that they have a tangible thing or things that they can work on and improve. And then he'll be back to the guy that, like you said, the worst possible scenario is if all that stuff went down last year and they had no idea why. Because then you're just throwing darts blindfolded, trying to figure out exactly what needs to change mechanically, health-wise, whatever it is, to get him back to the guy. But I don't think they would be speaking with the level of confidence they're speaking with now. And it's, like you said, all relative to the fact that it's absolutely concerning. There's nobody that's betting their house on the fact that he's going to be lights out next year. It's just a matter of they're not giving up by any means.
I asked Anthony on last night, 3.5 ERA. If I set that as the over-under for Tanner Scott, you taking the over or the under? He was like 4.75.
Yeah, I'm taking the under for sure on 3.5.
How low would I have to go before you'd think hard? Like if I said 3, does his ERA begin with a 2? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'd think hard at 3, but I still honestly think I'd take the under.
Yeah, I'm with you. You and I both optimistic here, Bruce, which I love. Richard says, San Diego media meltdown was epic. John and Jim of AM 760 want special rules to stop Dodger spending. Stated our out of control payroll will cause the lockout. I love that. I'm so impressed, Bruce, by the people in our chat and on our show who just love listening, like just hate watching San Diego content. I have a buddy who it's like he can't get enough Blue Jays content right now. But look, sometimes you get rewarded by a meltdown, it sounds like, from John and Jim. So shout out to them. Shout out to Richard for keeping us posted.
That was going on throughout the country, it sounded like today. I saw some stuff from Chicago online.
Well, the Cubs guy who said anybody who signs with the Dodgers is a coward. That guy just got absolutely flamed. Unbelievable.
Justifiably.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to back says, in a perfect world, how is the outfield addressed? I think the short answer, well, I shouldn't say that. Kyle Tucker feels like the perfect world, right? Like, even if we talk about all these guys who theoretically could be available via trade, whether it's Buxton, who seems like almost 0% chance, Abreu and Duran, who continue to be talked about, Kwan, who seems unlikely, Donovan, Nootbaar, etc. If you put all those guys on the table, I'll just start with this. Kyle Tucker's better than all of them, right?
By a pretty significant margin, yeah.
Agreed. So we all agree there. And maybe, again, after Edwin Diaz, we all kind of were like, well, they're not going to do the qualifying offer thing. Now, again, as we pointed out in the article, like Kyle Tucker also had a qualifying offer, but guess what? It's a lot cheaper to sign the second guy to a qualifying offer. Once you've already dove into that pool, the second guy is a third and a sixth, which is significantly less than a second and a fifth. So that's a part of it. But via trade seems the most likely option. And there was another name that got thrown in the mix today, Bruce. And I shouldn't say thrown in the mix because it's a name that you and I talked about. I can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but it's Jake Meyers of the Houston Astros. And Ken Rosenthal said, hey, you know what? This guy's a guy that Astros might be interested in moving. They're looking for pitching. And I said, center fielder, who couple years of team control from a team that's looking for pitching. Let's have a conversation. So Brian McTaggart, the Astros beat reporter for MLB.com, said Astros GM Dana Brown wouldn't address it directly, but sources say that the Dodgers are among teams interested in the 29-year-old outfielder under team control for 2 more seasons. They are looking to add pitching. Here's the scouting report on Jake Meyers. 2.5 win player last season, thanks to his, I don't want to call it a breakout, his best offensive season by far. And that best offensive season was a 107 weighted runs created plus, 100 being league average. So not that great. He essentially, it seems, gave up on trying to hit home runs and saw his batting average benefit. Batting average went up 73 points. Strikeout rate dropped. Walk rate went up. And on top of all of that, he's one of the best defensive center fielders in Major League Baseball. He was 96th percentile in outs above average last year in center, has graded out phenomenally every single year. He's a free agent in 2 years. He's very much like a Steven Kwan type. When you compare his 2025 to Kwan's 2025, he was actually a better offensive player than Steven Kwan, albeit with a little bit less slug. But he's an elite defender in center field where Kwan is an elite defender in left field. So I mentioned at the time, Bruce, this is a guy who's interesting to me because he allows the defensive alignment to shift in the right direction, move Pages to a corner, Teoscar to left field. And you've got a guy who, even if he's like a 95 weighted runs created plus, you're at least locking down center field with an elite defender. What are your thoughts on Meyers now that his name has officially been connected to the Dodgers?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because in a vacuum, I think it really is an intriguing kind of player. I'm not sure about what the bat brings, and I'm not sure about what the price will be. And those two things are very dependent on whether I'd be interested in him, which isn't a crazy bold statement. That's how it is with every single trade target everywhere. But he was like terrible as a hitter before last year. So for the Dodgers to be interested now, I would think that means that they've, specifically targeted certain mechanical adjustments and things that make them believe that it's repeatable. He went from a 219 average in 2024 to a 292 last year, and 85 weighted runs created plus in 24 to 107 last year. That's a huge jump that if you're trading for him, you're not trading for a guy who's going to be a 107 weighted runs created plus again. That's not the assumption at all. So the question is, do you think that he can be even a league average bat? If you think he can be an even 100, even like you said, a 95, then I'd be all over this trade because it would be a lot cheaper than some of these other outfield names that we're talking. And his glove is fantastic in center field. And that by itself, with him being able to pull his weight-ish with the bat, makes him a super valuable player. It would be like trading for another Tommy Edmonds sort of type to fill up the roster and really bring it all together. And he would be cheaper than Duran or a Kwan, even though he kind of fits better. The other part of it is the price. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly, like, are we talking about Emmett Sheehan range? Are we talking about a Justin Wrobleski range? Are we talking about a minor leaguer in terms of what pitching the Astros would want? That part interests me, but 2 years of team control, I don't think it would be cheap. I would just hope that you wouldn't be starting with a guy who's proven himself in the big leagues already as a starter.
Yeah, and I see G in the chat asking the question that is my natural one. If you're going to trade for Jake Meyers, why not just go sign Harrison Bader, who is basically a clone of Jake Meyers, except for he's a free agent. And when I say a clone, I mean really good defensively in center field, just had his absolute breakout offensive season that you're not at all sure is repeatable. But with Bader, it feels very similar in that, okay, we know we're getting a glove out there. I don't think the 120 weighted runs created plus is legit, which he had last year. He, like Myers, is more traditionally in the 80s range. And so to me, that would be my only counter. Because Bader is there and he costs you no prospects, Bruce, would you be more in favor of going out and signing Bader to a 2, maybe even a 3-year deal to lock up an equivalent player where the cost is financial instead of prospects?
No, I'm actually more interested in Jake Meyers than I am with Bader. I don't trust Bader's older, so I think that you're talking about the defense could fall off a lot quicker and a lot more abruptly. Myers is younger, and also I think that he's young enough as a hitter in the big leagues. Like, he hasn't been exposed as much. I think Bader is going to fall off a cliff, and I'm not rooting against him or anything like that, but I don't think that the hitter that he was last year is a repeatable thing at all. And he's older, which, like I said, the defense is hurt by that, and the bat is too. You have to acknowledge, like, that the decline will come a lot faster for that guy. I think Myers, with 2 years of team control, I have more trust that he can stay as the league average bat or something close to what he was last year in the bottom of the lineup than I do with Bader repeating the offense that he showed last year.
Okay. I think it's a great point on the age. Couple years younger in Myers, obviously team control, the cost there. I'll be curious to see what kind of player the Dodgers are targeting, because those two guys are like glove first and you hope the bat gives you something. There are other options who are lesser gloves or corner outfield gloves, but who offer you much more with the bat. If you were the Dodgers and they said, hey, without giving you names, hey, we can go get a league average offensive player who is elite in center field, or we can go get a 115 weighted runs created plus guy who's good in a corner. Which would you choose?
I'm easily taking the corner outfielder. I really am hoping that's where the Dodgers go, because I don't think Andy Pages in center field is a problem at all. Okay. In fact, I think that that's where his skill set is almost best used. He's a better right fielder than he is a center fielder, but he's still a really good center fielder. And usually when you're talking about a guy who's a really good center fielder, you don't want to just move him just for the whim of it. So I think that the offense is the thing that the Dodgers really feel like they could use that infusion. Pages in center field isn't the end of the world. So it might change a little bit if you change that corner outfield profile in the theoretical sense that you're talking about to a good bat and a bad glove. Then maybe I'd think about the center field thing. But if you can get a passable glove in right field and a better hitter, then I'd rather go that direction.
Fabian Ardaya also reporting, by the way, that the Dodgers is a guy, Teoscar Hernandez is a guy the Dodgers continue to receive phone calls about. And Anthony and I have joked, you need an outfielder. Trading away one guy that you actually have, who's a right-hander who can hit, seems problematic. But it does feel like there's enough options out there that getting 2 replacement outfielders, if they do move on from Teoscar Hernandez, which I'm not saying is likely, the Dodgers have indicated they're not all that interested in it. It just doesn't seem impossible to me, given the amount of guys who seem to be available via trade. Like, if they needed 2 relievers starting today, I'd be very nervous because there aren't two relief pitchers out there I like via trade or via free agency. Outfield wise, okay, fine. They move on Teoscar Hernandez. Maybe they sign a Bader and they go trade for one of the Cardinals guys. Like there's lots of ways that they can fill out their outfield, and I would trust Andrew Friedman to be able to do that.
Yeah, the thing with Teoscar is like I'm with you that I don't think it's impossible, and in a lot of ways it makes sense. The tough part that I have with it is if the Dodgers were willing to move Teoscar, then that really is saying a lot in terms of how they think that, like they think last year is the guy that he just is now. Because if they think that he's going to rebound anywhere close to 2024, then they wouldn't really be considering it. So I would think that other teams would see that and say, we're not going to pay a ton if you're really thinking about moving this guy. So it almost seems like it would be more of a get out of the contract sort of trade, which I just don't think makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers to do right now, given the fact they already need another outfielder on top of him. So I think it makes more sense to just hope that he can rebound and hold on to him for now. Obviously, if a team comes in and is willing to pay for 2024 Teoscar Hernandez right now, you take that because that's not the guy he is. But I definitely, my ideal way to go would be to move him to left field, keep the guy that's awesome in the clubhouse that has performed somewhat consistently in the playoffs, and hope that he can rebound throughout the full season and then go get better in right field. You don't ever want to see the Dodgers subtracting, especially guys that have become such fan favorites and seem to be such important guys in the locker room too with Teoscar.
Leandro asked via super chat, are we taking the Pingalore rumors seriously? Pingalore is the KTLA reporter who is at the winter meetings, who has now posted multiple times that the Dodgers, there's smoke around the Dodgers and Skubal. He doubled down about an hour ago saying that basically the deal is in place. It's just waiting approval from the Tigers. This has nothing to do with him. Let me start by saying that. This has nothing to do with him. Unless it's a name that I recognize, I don't trust it. And we've seen way too many times where one person you've never heard of goes way out on a limb to try and report something. And way more often than not, if you're just playing the odds, they're wrong, right? We're all thinking of the exact same person and the exact same name and the exact same Shohei Ohtani plane to Toronto right now, right? Like there was a person who went out on a limb who tried to break a massive story before all the rest of the guys, and they find out why those guys corroborate sources and get multiple of them. And it's just a lot harder for somebody that people haven't heard of to have 2 or 3 or 4 different sources who can corroborate things. So it has nothing to do with this guy. But until I see somebody that I know, somebody that has earned the right to be heard as a Dodgers beat reporter or a national reporter, I'm just not going to believe that the guy from KTLA has the inside scoop on Tarik Skubal to the Dodgers ahead of everybody else. That doesn't mean he's wrong. It just might mean he has one source and that's the only source saying it, and so nobody else is willing to report it. That's possible. I just find it hard to believe that Fabian Ardaya and Jack Harris and Bill Plunkett and Sonia Chen and Jeff Passan and Nightingale, like Passett, all these guys, John Heyman, all these guys don't have it, but he does. That's the hard part for me. And again, I hope this doesn't come across as personal, because if I reported something, I would expect absolutely everybody to say the same things and worse about me, to be clear. It has nothing to do with the name and has everything to do with, have you earned the right to be heard on a massive story?
Yeah, this reporting business, and for us seeing reports, it's kind of a prove it before we can really take you at face value kind of thing. So like you said, nothing against Pingalore at all. And it's enough to kind of raise your monitor to be looking out for other things. But it's not like that I'm staying up tonight and waiting for the news to break anywhere else. If it happens, great, and good for him for being first. But it's kind of a wait and see sort of thing that I'm not, like I said, I'm not waiting up and thinking that it's imminent just because of that alone.
Yeah. And by the way, in the Rosenthal and Katie Wu piece that was published an hour ago, they said Skubal is probably even less likely than Kyle Tucker, considering the return the Tigers would want for their back-to-back American League Cy Young winner, even though he is only under club control for one more year.
Once it's been addressed by the reporter that you're more inclined to trust in a way that's different than the report that's out, then it falls through pretty fast.
Yeah. To believe Pingalore would be to not believe Katie Wu and Ken Rosenthal. Let's put it that way.
Be crazy for that.
A couple more news and notes from the winter meetings, then we'll get to some questions. Andrew Friedman talked about Kiké Hernández today. Quote, "We'll never shut the door on Kiké. The value he provides on the field with his versatility, the value he provides in the clubhouse. He's got to do what's best, but we will see how that plays out." Kiké Hernández also today posted a picture of him and Edwin Diaz with Bad Bunny from back in the day. He also reposted MLB's story about Edwin Diaz signing with the Dodgers on Instagram as well. Does this all seem to you like a guy who's just going to sign once some 40-man roster spots open up?
Yeah, it all feels that way. It seems like Kiké is going to spend the rest of his time with the Dodgers. It's admittedly hard to exactly figure out where he fits on the roster, what the role is, and those things are a little murky, especially after Miguel Rojas got brought back. But especially knowing that he's going to start the year on the injured list, that makes it even easier to say sign him to start the year, and then not every single person on the roster is going to be healthy by the time that he's back in June. So just sign him and assume that he's your guy waiting when somebody else gets hurt by that time.
The other story that made its way through social media today is asking the question, is Freddie Freeman hurt? All of the World Baseball Classic managers and sort of team organizations were available to take questions today. Baseball Canada was quoted as saying that Freddie Freeman wants to play, but is dealing with, quote, a little bit of a health issue. Fabian Ardaya then posted on Twitter saying that the Canada people had said, quote, Freeman is having, quote, some procedures done. Andrew Friedman was later asked and said he didn't believe that Freddie Freeman was requiring any procedures. What do you make of Team Canada, the Dodgers, nobody being able to agree on if Freddie Freeman needs to have surgery on something?
I don't think that it's a surprise in any way at all that Freeman is working through recovering from probably a whole bunch of things, because these last couple of years for Freddie have been completely grueling with injuries and stuff. So I think we all already knew that he's going through a few different things, and whether he has surgery, whether he doesn't, it doesn't necessarily change a lot for me in terms of he's got the things he's recovering from the 2024 postseason, from all of last year, and he's an older guy now. Like, this is the reality of an offseason after he still tries to play 155 plus games in a season. There's going to be a long period, especially at the beginning, where it's all about recovery, and if there's any minor procedures to be done, there is. But I think you also can't get too scared by just the word procedure, because procedure could mean a lot of things. It's not like procedure means that he's having a major knee surgery that will hold him out for 6 months or anything like that. There's a lot of these procedures that these professional athletes get done that are like a week or two kind of recovery, because they're such minor things, and that all the surgeons that they have access to are so good at what they do. So it's nothing to me until we hear more concrete information about if there's something that is going to affect next year for sure. Then I think it's just run of the mill.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved Cole pointing out no more worm dancing for Freddie Freeman. I think we can all agree on this. If there are procedures or things that need to recover, I can assure you that doing the worm, although I enjoy every video that has come out, very, very much in favor of banning the worm, at least for the next couple of months.
Just do it standing up. Freddie is kind of a version of it. You're moving.
Exactly. I'm cool with that. By the way, all the Freddie Freeman stuff he's been doing with the Children's Hospital up in Canada, all of the videos that have come out around that are awesome. So shout out to Freddie Freeman. Shout out to the kids, because all that content has been really, really good. So really enjoyed that stuff. Let's get to some questions, folks. All caps questions. We will get to as many as we can. No, this will not be a 2-hour show. Moreno set the bar very, very high last night with the 2-hour show. I got home from my Christmas party 2 nights ago, and I was like, you guys are still going, Anthony and Moreno. So shout out to them. Some of us are just built different. Moreno's built different. Witrado built different. Me, not so much. But we're going to get to some questions. Let's see what we got here. The Scooter Booter, did you say that Jake Meyers is a better offensive player than Harrison Bader? Or would you say that Jake Meyers is a better offensive player than Harrison Bader?
I think going into next year, I probably trust it a little bit more, but neither of these guys are guys I'm banking on to be hitters. Like, I think I would put them in the same sort of range of, without looking at like other projections, just off my gut, the Bruce plus expected stats would be like a 90, 95 weighted runs created plus, and the defense has to carry the profile.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce this name. There we go. Is there a righty or switch hitter bat out there that you would take in the 2-hole that would slide Mookie down in the lineup? I mean, Kyle Tucker?
No righty or switch is gonna dethrone the top three the Dodgers have now, I don't think. So Kyle Tucker is your guy that if there's anybody that is readily available that would actually go in the top of the Dodger lineup and potentially shift things around, he's the one guy that would do that. So not a righty or switch, if that's answering the question.
Yeah, and that's why they clarified, right? Because Tucker's a lefty, and you're not going to want to stack lefties at the top of the order. So Brendan Donovan, some guys like that, Donovan's a lefty too, though, right?
He's a lefty. If we were to talk about a world where the Dodgers signed Kyle Tucker, then the lineup construction would be really interesting. I'll definitely admit that I think that there's a possibility if you add Tucker to this lineup that Freddie Freeman winds up hitting fifth sometimes, which is crazy to say out loud, but with Will Smith hitting fourth to keep those lefties separated, Freeman in the 5 spot on a lineup card would be extremely jarring and look extremely wrong, but it would be a testament to how good the lineup would be if that were to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, we got a bunch of good questions. Noisy Ninja. I'm sure anyone could have given Diaz 3 for 69. So why is it that the Dodgers are ruining baseball when it seems like teams aren't spending again? Let me make the case for and against the Dodgers are ruining baseball. The case against it is simple, as you point out. Every single team could have afforded the contract that Edwin Diaz just got. 3 for 69 is not outrageous. If $500 million for Kyle Tucker, sure, maybe that's not a deal that some team in a small market can afford. Fine, but 3 for 69, everybody can afford. I think if I was going to make the argument against the Dodgers, which I do not intend to do with any part of my heart, it would be that most teams can't afford to spend this money on a closer. The Dodgers can afford to overpay a closer. The Dodgers can afford to give up their second and fifth and the international bonus pool money because they can spend in other areas. I think that is the advantage the Dodgers have. That is not ruining baseball. It's simply to say that the way things are structured, the way that the Dodgers have created revenue streams that other teams have chosen not to or were unable to, the Dodgers can spend their money in places and ways that other teams can't. I think that's the best summary I can have, but I'm not mad about it. This is the way the system is created, and the Dodgers are taking advantage.
Yeah, I think the thing that's ruining baseball, I pulled up this quote while you were talking there. This was Rosenthal reporting. The Reds are not expected to pursue other expensive free agents because their 5-year deal to Kyle Schwarber, their 5-year offer was due to the belief that he would drive ticket sales. If that's your primary objective in signing free agents, that's what's ruining baseball. Go try and win games.
Yeah, absolutely. Love says, rank these pitchers next year. Roki, Gavin Stone, and River Ryan.
This is a tough one.
I would go River Ryan. I would go River Ryan, Roki, Sasaki, Gavin Stone, because I'm scared of Gavin Stone's shoulder. That would be my answer.
I honestly think, it's all depending on Stone's shoulder. If his shoulder isn't right, then he would be third here. But if I'm going to assume that he's okay, and if I'm ranking him that way, I think it would have to be Ryan, Stone, Sasaki, because I think Sasaki has a lot to prove. Not only that he was better results-wise in the postseason, and he was great in October. I didn't mean to take any of that away, but there still are underlying questions for him, especially moving back into the rotation, whereas Stone has been a really good big league starter already before, and Ryan has all the stuff that there really isn't a question that he can be. Yeah,
I'm with you. Back to back, what do you think has a higher chance of happening, Tucker or Skubal? We're both firmly in Tucker, right?
Yeah.
Madison asks, how many more free agents can we sign? Definitely need an outfielder. I think pitching is fine. It's hard to imagine another pitching signing to a major league deal that takes a 40-man roster spot because of how full it is. I think there's 2 more free agents that they can sign on the offensive side of things, whether that's a starting outfielder and Kiké Hernández. They don't need to sign those. But I would imagine 2 on the offensive side, 0. And if I'm counting Kiké Hernández in that, 0 on the pitching side, unless you want to count Evan Phillips as a guy, because he's going to go straight to the 60-day IL, and I think they get him back. So true free agents available to play on opening day, I would say 2 position, 0 pitching.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they might make a sort of depth-ish signing if that's Kiké, or if it's sending Kiké right to the 60-man or the 60-day injured list and then signing somebody else to improve the bench. And then you can also just kind of generalize this as not necessarily just free agents, but also trade targets if they go and get any of these other guys that are available. The Dodgers are in a place right now where the only real need on the roster is to go get another one bat. And then from there, they maybe could have space for one more. But it's kind of nice to be December 9th. And they've been talking about this too, of like the Dodgers do not have a ton of pressing things that even Diaz wasn't they have no chance next year if they don't sign Edwin Diaz. That's a luxury. Everything they do from here on out is a luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy asks, I hate that YouTube has changed all your names. I apologize because I like G followed by 3 E's, a Y, and an E. No idea how I'm supposed to pronounce that. So apology. Oh, GI. Duh. It says GI there. We used to have someone named GI, and if you spell this out, it says GI. So I'm an idiot, and I figured that out in real time. So shout out to me. GI asks, with 24 pitchers on the 40-man, 9 of which are without options, Ohtani not included, doesn't a trade involving pitching surplus seem inevitable? If so, who is your target? I don't want to say inevitable. I think the Dodgers could make it work with this group. I think it is likely. I think they are going to trade for an outfielder, and I think it is going to involve at least one pitcher who is currently on the 40-man roster, if not 2. That would be how I think they kind of check both of these boxes.
I think that's the most likely way forward. And right now it's such a crowded pitching group that it would definitely make sense to move somebody. Like you said, I don't think they have to, because pitching is the one thing that they always, they always run out of pitching, all those things. But the thing is, like, even off the 40-man roster, there's the guys like Jackson Ferris. There are other options that can step up if they were to move depth and then everything went wrong. Still, there are other guys that are ready to step in. So I think that some sort of trade, whether it's trading for the outfielder or if they don't have to do that, I wouldn't even be totally surprised if they were to do a sort of like Gavin Lux-ish thing and try to make up some ground for the draft picks and international pool that they just gave up for Diaz and trying to make some of that back and move depth. I don't think that's impossible either.
Yeah, absolutely. Sermon King asks, is Brendan Donovan a good fit for the Dodgers? Yes, he is a good fit for the Dodgers. Unfortunately,
he's a great fit.
Fit for a lot of teams.
Yeah, he's a really good player. And I think that when I listened back to the first time that we talked about him, I felt like I was underselling a little bit, like how impactful he is and how much he would cost. Like, he's not really a huge downgrade in terms of cost compared to the Durans and the Kwans by any means, because I think Donovan is like not as sexy of a name, but I think he's right up there in terms of impact and in terms of price with those guys. He's just you have to be an analytically inclined organization, and you have to be in those rooms to really see the value where the average fan might not. But he's a really dang good player, and trading for him would be expensive, but it would also be a fantastic ad.
Yoshi asks, like Lakers Nation, do you have sister sites for the Rams? We do. Rams Newswire. We also have Raiders Newswire. All of these sites are in like different levels of development. Lakers Nation was first. Dodger Blue came after that. And so that's why some of these sites are far more developed. We're the only two that have sort of a digital media side like this show, but Rams Newswire, Raiders Newswire, as well. Some other local, I consider the Raiders basically an LA team, but that's just me. They have lots of LA fans. Congrats, by the way. Thank you for your Broncos beating us again, Bruce, this past weekend, us being the Raiders. We are gunning for the first round pick and the first overall pick. And you guys, can you please learn to just beat the crap out of us? Enough with this, let us hang around for too long, Bruce.
Yeah, I think the Broncos they're a winning football team, but they're not a blow you out football team. It's hard. It's easy to be a Bronco fan this year in terms of they've won 10 straight games, and I'm very thankful that it's not the post Super Bowl 50 era anymore. But every week is not great for my health.
Yeah. Shout out to my guy Bo Nix, though. Go Ducks. Stanley wants to know, will any prospects finally help the team next year? Finally. I mean, Andy Pages helped the team this past year. Like, Robleski helped the team this past year. Jack Dreyer helped the team this past year. I mean, come on, finally. Dalton Rushing, I feel like it's a guy that could help the team. A lot of the other guys are names that we've already seen, right? Like, it's Robleski, It's Kasparius, it's Gavin Stone, River Ryan types. Like, are there any other guys? Is there Alex Freeland, I think, is going to be in the mix. Hesung Kim is going to be in the mix. Let me put it this way. Is there a guy who's going to make a major league debut in 2026 who can help?
Yeah, my answer for that is Jackson Ferris. I think that he pitches in the big leagues next year, and I'm not sitting here expecting it to be like a huge impact. Like, I don't think he's going to be on the postseason roster or anything like that. It's not impossible, but that would take injuries and things to happen to let that path be open. But I think he'll make his debut, and even if it's just as like an occasional spot start when they need it. I think he'll be up at some point. But like you said, it's just there's not a lot to go around, because saying prospects is excluding a lot of these young guys that have graduated prospect status, the Dalton Rushing, the pitchers that are coming back, Gavin Stone, River Ryan, like guys that haven't really been in the big leagues for a long time but aren't technically prospects anymore. That's the flush of young talent for next year mostly.
Yeah, Zach Earhart was the other guy who got mentioned. I believe it was by Fabian Ardaya like twice when he came on our show. So him and James Tibbs are outfield prospects that are on the upper end of the minor league. So that would be two more names.
On the hitting side, those are the two guys to keep an eye on, because they're both college bats that are moving fairly quick.
Yeah. Smile 51. Am I alone in being fine with a Ward and Call left field? It'll give Jeff a replacement to root for. I appreciate that. And I want to bank on my prospects and don't want to spend. I am not going to be fine with a Ward and Call left field. Bruce, would you be fine with a Ward and Call left field? Or is Smile 51 alone?
It depends how you use the word fine, because in the regular sense of like satisfied, no, I'm not going to be. What did you say?
Content.
Yeah, no, I won't be content. I'll be left wishing for something better for sure.
You're like, they chopped off one of my legs, but at least I have the other. Therefore, I am fine. That was Bruce's definition of fine, is like, I can still hop on one leg even though I can't walk. That was like, that's how you think of fine.
The fine could mean that you're going into next year and still being a World Series contender. And it's not like that Ward and Call in that field means that the Dodgers have no chance to win anything, but there would be a lot better options that you'd hope they could get first.
Yeah. Smile says they can't be worse than Conforto, right? And my response would be, would you be fine if they brought Conforto back this year? The answer is no. So there you go. Magic says, if you're being greedy, what's the dream scenario for the rest of the offseason as far as signings and trades? I mean, it would have to be Kyle Tucker, right? Like that's the dream scenario. And then, whatever, re-sign Kiké Hernández, re-sign Evan Phillips, and call it a day, I guess.
The dream scenario is sign Kyle Tucker and trade for Tarik Skubal. Yeah, sure.
There you go. I like this from Madison. Last baseball question before we get to a couple non-baseball. Predict the first outfielder we sign or trade, Bruce. 4. Trade 4.
This is really tough. Because I don't think Quan is going to happen. I don't continue to feel like that Duran. I just don't see that coming together. So it's really murky right now. My gut almost wants to say Jake Meyers, just because that's where the most recent and prominent connection has been. But I think they're going to kick the tires on the other options first, and he'll be the backup.
So who did you land on?
Jake Meyers, if I had to choose one, maybe.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to go with Lars Nootbaar. How's that for a little bit of off the radar? So give me Lars Nootbaar. Okay, 2 food questions, and then I have a funny dentist story I promised on social media I would tell today. Aaron asks, hard or soft shell tacos, Bruce?
Soft shell.
My answer is typically soft shell. However, my favorite Mexican place makes their own hard shell tacos by like literally frying tortillas and then stuffing them with shredded beef, cheese, tomatoes, and lettuce. And that's the pinnacle as far as I'm concerned. So if they are homemade, like within 5 minutes ago, hard shell tacos, I'm in. Otherwise soft. And yes, I am a flour over corn tortilla guy as well. Bruce?
Me too.
Love that. Love that. Richard asks, when celebrating the Diaz signing, would you celebrate with McDonald's fries, Jack in the Box curly season fries, or In-N-Out animal fries, Bruce?
Yeah, animal fries are the far and away best on this list. And I like Jack in the Box seasoned fries too, but that's in a tier of like the real fast food sort of better, but In-N-Out is like barely fast food to me.
I've had this hot take on here that people don't like, which is I don't think animal style fries are nearly as good as everybody makes them out to be. I think In-N-Out fries just dipped in the spread by themselves are fantastic. And I don't see like a massive upgrade by the situation with animal style fries. So I will buck the trend here a little bit, Bruce, and I will say I'd take McDonald's fries.
I will say I do agree with you mostly on that take, because I'm not a guy who normally gets animal fries because I'm cheap, and I think that the fries by themselves are okay to get spread on the side, and I'm like it's not like I'm sitting there wishing I could pay more to get that upgrade. So I think you're fine there.
Learning to order my fries light well from In-N-Out has been an absolute. I used to think their fries were so mediocre But now Lightwell fries from In-N-Out dipped in the spread, I think is like a near top tier French fry experience. So there you go. And they do have In-N-Out in Oregon, by the way. I also think somebody told me that on the animal style fries, like you can get 2 of the 3 ingredients for free or something. Or maybe you can ask for spread and grilled onions on the fries and they don't charge you. Somebody can do the research on this, but I believe I was told that you can get 2 out of 3 for free.
Can you get cheese on it for free? That's what I feel like that's more likely than the onions.
Yeah, maybe not the cheese. Maybe it was if you get them without the cheese.
Oh.
But people can correct me if it's 2 out of 3 or if it's the cheese specifically that they charge you for. But
I'll say I'm not crazy about McDonald's, like, period. I don't like McDonald's very much, so that's why I didn't even acknowledge them.
You don't like McDonald's fries, though?
They're the better thing there, but whenever I eat McDonald's, I feel like I'm just eating cancer in 30 years. Like, I just don't, I don't trust anything that they have there and the oils that they use. I don't want to use it.
You can get grilled onions and spread for free on your fries if you would like it. So there you go.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Here's my dentist story that I thought was really funny, and this felt like a good platform to share this. So, I would like to think, Bruce, that I'm a pretty positive person when it comes to like customer service experiences, especially face to face. It was coming right out of COVID. It might have been 2021. So let's call it 4 years ago. I go to the dentist, and I'm a regular dentist person, by the way. Every 6 months, myself in a dentist chair, despising every second of being at the dentist, but going to the dentist. 2021, admittedly, during COVID, had not gone. Probably had been 18 months to 2 years. I go back to the dentist. I don't even remember what the situation was. I was having a conversation with the person cleaning my teeth, and it was about a charge that I think they were trying to charge me for that I wasn't entirely understanding why I was being charged for. Don't remember the specifics. What I do remember is this. The business manager at the dental office had a complete crash out on me. I'm talking like Karen making a scene, like not grabbing me out of the chair, but basically telling me I needed to leave the dental office and I could not come back because I was being disrespectful. Completely lost her mind. Okay. So this happened to me at a dentist office. Now I moved about 3.5 years ago, about 20 minutes down the freeway. So no big deal. I switched dentists. Well, today I was trying out a new dentist. Long story. Don't need to share why, but not because of another crash out, I promise. But I go into the dentist office and I realized that the dentist I'm about to see is actually somebody who worked at the dental. It was a dentist who used to be, I recognized her from my old dentist. And so I'm like, I'm like, hey, did she used to work at such and such? And they're like, yeah, she did. I'm like, this is no idea how the next 45 minutes of my life are going to go. So I'm just getting an exam. I go in there. The first lady comes and she checks out my teeth and she's like, the dentist will be right here. It's taking a little while, maybe 15 minutes. Great. I'm not joking, Bruce. I sat in the chair for 40 minutes before anybody came and saw me. And I'm texting my wife and I'm like, I think this lady hates me. Like, I'm pretty sure revenge is me. She's just going to make me sit here for 45 minutes, for an hour. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm like, she definitely remembers me. They had a picture of me up in the dentist's office or something, and I was on the blacklist. Well, eventually she comes in. I'm not kidding. It was like 40 minutes later. She comes in. She's apologetic. Sorry, makes a joke. And I was like, hey, did you used to work at this place? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, I think I recognize you. And she's like, oh, okay, that's awesome. And I was like, I made some comment about like, I'm hoping you don't recognize me because I had a really bad experience at that place. And she just has this smile come across her face. And she's like, tell me more. Well, it turns out she quit that place. And guess what, Bruce? She quit because she hated the lady who had a crash out on me. So the world came full circle. Me and the new dentist completely bonded. And it was an amazing moment. Complete relief. She didn't hate me. I hadn't been blacklisted by anybody. Apparently, crash out lady just sucked. So there you go. There's my dentist story.
How about it? That's a full circle moment. Hollywood tale. Well told.
Totally. That's what I'm saying. So shout out to her. I won't tell the story about why she quit. Let's just say this lady sucked. And I think I just caught her on the wrong day. I think everyone was stressed coming out of COVID. I think she had a bad day. And I was just the person who crossed her path on that one. But man, oh man, crash out Karen, as Jay Teaser is saying right there. Crash out Karen apparently has lots of enemies, myself and the dentist who left. By the way, this dentist had left the practice like 4 years before the crash out. So also not involved. But there you go. Vindication for Jeff, as people are indicating in the chat. So there you go. The Tigers just signed Kyle Finnegan, by the way. I don't know if you have any interest in that move, but Tarik Skubal definitely coming now, right? Now that they signed a closer. Just
2 years, 19 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for him.
Kyle Finnegan, baby. Jeff is a Karen. That's also possible. Yeah. I'll ask you one last question. We'll get out of here, Bruce. I posted this on social media today. I was at the grocery store. I posted a picture of something. I'm not expecting you to see every tweet, but did you see the food item I took a picture of today?
I did not.
All right, let me look this up.
Let me
our guy
check.
David, is apparently interested in this, which I think I'm worried about. It's French vanilla dessert hummus from Boar's Head. French vanilla dessert hummus. Enjoy with graham crackers is what the picture says. I couldn't be less interested in dessert hummus. Like, why do they call it hummus? Just call it something. Literally, like a dessert dip sounds weird to me, especially when it's right next to like the roasted garlic hummus. But it's called dessert hummus. Like, is it made with garbanzo beans still? I have so many questions. Our guy David in the chat wants to go try it, though.
I think all those words that you just put together were not meant to go back to back in the English language.
Yeah. Let's see. I want to look this up now. We're just going to do this real. Here we go. It's Boar's Head, by the way. Just if you're a gag reflex person, I'm warning you. A smooth and creamy blend of freshly steamed chickpeas, cane sugar, bourbon vanilla extract, complete with visible vanilla bean specks for a touch of elegance. Boar's Head's French vanilla dessert hummus is a better-for-you indulgence that delivers rich, sweet flavor in every bite, perfectly paired with fresh berries, almond biscotti, or warm shortbread. It's a versatile treat and delightful companion to our beloved Boar's Head, wait for it, dark chocolate dessert hummus, gluten-free, non-GMO, and 100% delicious, Bruce.
0%. That 100% is false advertising. I would not try that. I've never heard of a hummus that when it says on the, I'm looking at it right now, it says on the label, like enjoy with graham crackers. That's not a, what?
Yeah.
Stay away.
The first ingredient is chickpeas, and they're selling to you this as a dessert.
Oh, that's terrible.
Aaron says it sounds good to him. I'm just telling you, chickpeas as the number one ingredient, I'm out. That's not dessert. I like hummus, by the way. I'm here for hummus. Yeah. But if it could be full of chickpeas, don't call it hummus. Call it like a French vanilla dessert dip or something. You'd at least get me to try it. But if this tastes anything like chickpeas, I want it nothing near dessert.
Not everything has to have a dessert variant. You know, there's no dessert lasagna. Like, just leave some. Hummus is good. Why are we butchering it like this?
Yeah, 80 calories per 2 tablespoons, 6 grams of added sugar. In case anybody
is that the idea here? Is it supposed to be like a healthy dessert alternative? Because
otherwise, how they're pitching it, it sounds like I think it's somewhere a better for you indulgence.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Jay Teaser says, Jeff, you had bean-based desserts in Singapore, 100%. I actually had them in South Korea, I think more than in Singapore. They have this red bean stuff that they kind of make look like chocolate so that dumb people like me eat it thinking they're having chocolate-covered strawberries when it's red bean-covered strawberries. And I'm going to be honest, I'm out. I'm out on red bean dessert. All the Korean people I was with love it. And I'm like, you know what? Not yucking anybody else's yum, but not for me. Not for me. So beans and dessert, I guess, cocoa beans, I'm in. That's pretty much it, probably. So bingsu.
If it's not truly processed and unhealthy, then it's not dessert, is sounding like the thought process.
Yeah. And by the way, bingsu is a shaved ice type thing that you can order it without the red bean paste, I believe. Maybe it's called bingsu specifically, but they have like essentially white person version of bingsu, which is like this shaved milk ice, but with fruit instead of a red bean. Although this does say that the original one comes with sweet red bean paste. So there you go. I have not had Halo from the Philippines. That has beans in it too. Yeah, there you go. So dessert hummus. It sounds like our guy David is going to go hunting it down. So David, report back to us and keep us posted, I guess, on that front.
Maybe. You might not want to hear.
No, I'm here. As long as it's not me eating it, I'm here for it.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's fair.
That'll do it for us tonight, folks. All the people that stayed through a dentist story and dessert hummus, you're the real ones, as they would say. That is Bruce Kuntz. I am Jeff Spiegel. As always, check out the Dodger Blue app, Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. Of course, If you're not subscribed and ring the notification bell here, please do, because when there's breaking news, i.e. Edwin Diaz signs, guess what? We went live at 9 a.m. this morning with a 3-person show, and we will continue to do that as news breaks, if news breaks, over the coming days of the winter meetings and all the way up until. And if not, guess what? We're here every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday as well. So enjoy the rest of your night, everyone. As always, go Dodgers. And yes, still champs.